It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. And now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And good morning, everyone. It's the big day. It's the day we've all been waiting for. Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Election Day. Yes, Election Day. The polls will close, I think, 7 p.m. Eastern Time? And all across the country, they'll be closed about 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Wow. When are we going to get results? Well, I don't know. But tonight, you can go to newstalk760.com or anywhere on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Rumble and YouTube and other places as well. Getter, I think. I'll be there. We'll be in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, broadcasting live from Greensburg, Pennsylvania. And John Fredericks, Mark Mitchell, and I will be giving you the very best election results possible. So that's this is it, big election day. So it's time for the morning rundown, brought to you by The Glock Store, located right here in Nashville at theglockstore.com. Here's the morning rundown for Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Number one, it's Election Day. Go out and vote. We'll be broadcasting tonight from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, live on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'll be there starting at 6 p.m. with John Fredericks and Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports. Mitchell is very optimistic about how this is all going to play out. He thinks it's going to be called early. We'll see. Number two, there is a poll that just came out from Pennsylvania, which shows Donald Trump leading, as well as David McCormick leading in the Senate there. Number three, New York Democrats, the bureaucrats have executed Peanut the squirrel. We talked about that yesterday. We'll have a little bit more on that today, but it's an overreach, and we're trying to track down the judge that signed the warrant for this. It ended up in the execution of Peanut the squirrel. And, of course, we cannot forget about Fred the raccoon, also executed there. Number four, in Milwaukee, the Republican National Committee is suing Milwaukee because they're shutting out Republican poll workers. That's a good sign. Why is that a good sign? Well, last time the Republican lawyers were a day late and a dollar short. This time they're ahead of everything. And finally, number five, this is a really interesting indication of changes. Megyn Kelly last night in Pittsburgh spoke at the rally for Donald Trump. What about that? Now that's something. Think about that. Think about the change that's happened with Megyn Kelly. Remember when she was Fox News in 2016, they had a famous interaction, which was kind of, testy when she was moderating a debate. She left Fox to go to NBC. Now she's independent, and she's all in for Donald Trump right now. How about that? So there you go. That is the morning rundown for the big day, Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. The morning rundown is brought to you by The Glock Store. Our friends at The Glock Store, glockstore.com. This is the time of year we're called upon to be thankful, so I just like to talk about something I'm thankful for all year long, and that's my sponsors. This is commercial radio because it's a business. I'm not supported by tax dollars or by bending a knee to the government. I can freely express my opinions and let you express yours because I make my money by having a great audience and letting my sponsors tell you about their products and services. One of my favorite sponsors is the Glock Store. Lenny McGill moved to Nashville in 2020, brought his entire operation from San Diego. When they opened their doors here, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, Michael, we like what you're doing, how you're doing it. We'd like to support you." And they've been doing it ever since. As a longtime radio guy, I really like that. Here in Nashville, they have a beautiful retail showroom and the incredible, totally unique Shoot 270 shooting rooms. But first and foremost, the Glock Store is a nationwide online retailer, glockstore.com. Please visit glockstore.com and sign up for their interesting and informative sales letters at the bottom of the website. Glockstore.com. Thank you, Lenny McGill. Okay. Well, the left is going crazy. Nancy Pelosi evidenced that again over the weekend. Here's clip 27. Nancy Pelosi basically attacking every Republican in the country.
Take care. I do want to start with those comments because, I mean, your family knows better than just about any family in America the very real consequences of Trump's violent rhetoric. And I just want to get your reaction to what he just said at this rally, what we just played for the audience.
Good morning. Wonderful to be with you again on this weekend before the election. I think that what the ex-president just said is a further indication of his cognitive degeneration. You saw recently when he was talking about whether he chose electrocution or being eaten by sharks. Something's very wrong there. And indicative in it also is diminishing the power of the press, which is the guardian of our freedom in our country. So I think people who might thinking about voting for him have to know that he can't last as president for 4 years with his brain deteriorating at the rate that it is, and is clearly evident. And they may be voting for President Vance, which would be a horrible thing for our country. You're right, our family has experienced the violence. Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy? Coming into our house, violating the sanctity of our home, the safety of my husband, looking for me, echoing what was said on January 6th in the Capitol. Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy? Was coming up to punish me for what I had said about Donald Trump.
Okay, she's making all that up. I mean, talk about she's the one who was supporting Joe Biden for years and years and years, and all of a sudden she's claiming Donald Trump is the one who's losing cognitive capability. I don't think so. In fact, I don't think so at all. That is, if you want to look in the dictionary at hypocrisy, that's what that is. Okay, so we got that going on. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has some support in some surprising areas. Here's clip 5. A bunch of Somalis in Minnesota backed him. Here we go, clip 5.
We love our brothers and sisters who are Democrats, but you left us. And because the left left us, join the right, vote for Trump, 2024.
And that's a surprising turn. An even more surprising turn is the candidacy of Lily Tang, who's born in Chinese Communist Party and fled to the United States, born in China, rather, and is running for Congress against a left-wing liberal. She just tore into that person over the weekend. Here we go, clip 6. You got a list. Lily Tang taking on her opponent.
The politicians who don't understand that, they should go back to economics 101 schools to learn who caused high inflation. It's not the private sector. It's always the federal government who can print money.
We don't continue this disastrous tax policy.
Ms. Tomlin.
You are wealthy. You're worth $20 million to $30 million. How do you know about regular people suffering? Do you go shopping, go to Walmart, buy food? I talk to those people. And you pretend to be a renter in Nashua a few months ago, moved back to run for this open seat with millions of dollars from Washington, D.C. insiders. And the millions of dollars. I don't have money to run a TV ad. And you pretend you are poor, complain rent is so high. You couldn't save that apartment for other people to rent in Nashua. Just go back to your $2 million home in Portsmouth. Please don't say that, because you do not understand regular people's concern. People cry in my arms on this issue.
What a great takedown that was. You know, born in China, fled the Chinese Communist Party, Republican, Lily Tang. I think she's going to win. Hey, when we come back, Brian Quigley joins us. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back. And we welcome to our newsmaker line right now our very good friend, Brian Quigley, who works often with Restoration News. Brian, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it.
It's the big day. It's Election Day. I think you live in Virginia. What time do the polls close tonight in Virginia?
They close at 7 o'clock. Yeah.
You also have a lot of publications that are state-based around the country. Where is do you think the biggest surprise today going to come? Which state will be the biggest surprise?
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to say in a single state, but I guess I will say that I think Pennsylvania is still where everything's going to come down. I mean, the blue wall for certain, but I think that the size of Pennsylvania and that blue wall is probably huge. So I would say that what happens in Pennsylvania is likely going to be what's going to give us a window into which way it's going to go, and that's interesting because it's going to be, I'll say, early in the evening when their polls close, but we may not know for days for the simple fact that it's called the city is Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And a lot of bad things happen in Philadelphia, as they say. So we're going to have to keep our eye on that. 19
electoral college votes in Pennsylvania. There have been by weeks claims out of the various officials in Pennsylvania that, well, we may not be able to get results for days or weeks or whenever. Why is it, Brian, that it's only the battleground states that Democrats need to win that are days delayed in their reporting?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I mean, I think the cynical answer, and perhaps the closer to the truth answer, is that these are the places that are more of what I would call the machine, the political machines, right? Places like Milwaukee and Philadelphia, other places like that. And so a lot of times, I mean, the cynical perspective is that, but maybe the true perspective is that they wait to see how many votes they need, and then magically they find them in the trunk of somebody's car, and what do you know, it's there. But here's the interesting question about the time it takes. You know, you and I probably, and many of your listeners will recall that before the age of the, early voting in the numbers that we have today, we knew who the president was on election night, good, bad, or different. So why was it that they were able to count these ballots so efficiently, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and today they're not?
That's a good question. I mean, we knew typically on Election Day, I mean, you go back 1960, 1956, 1964, 1968, even the contested election of 1968. I think that was called 2 a.m. Eastern time.
Exactly.
And now we're all dreading, another one of these long, drawn-out things. It seems like the Democrats, they have this entire cottage industry. It's actually bigger than a cottage. It's like a whole, massive development industry, right? Where they've got Mark Elias, his entire career is based upon suing for election issues, and he's geared up to jump in. This time around, however, my take on it, Brian, is that the Republicans are much better prepared to handle the legal challenges. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I've talked to a number of folks that are in the know on this issue and are actually working on these things. There's never been more Republican poll watchers or lawyers that are going to be dispatched to some of these places that shenanigans have historically happened in this election. So, and I think the Republican side of the equation is sort of feeling cautiously better about that than they have before. I think there are structural things that make us at least feel like we're not going to be caught off guard, perhaps like we were in the last election, the 2020 election, and that we're not going to be waiting for them to kind of goose the vote as much. So I feel good about those things. I also feel good about the structural changes in terms of the voting numbers, and that this is the first time in more than probably a generation where we've seen, at least nationally, Republican registration is slightly ahead of Democrats overall. So, and I was talking to one of my pollster friends about that, and I asked the question. I said, some people think that's just simply shifting sort of, let's say, Trump votes who were Democrats but voted for Trump before, and now they went and they say, well, now we're just going to register and be Republican. So it's a shift, but not really an electoral, change. And he said to me, no, that's actually not completely true. He believes that the change in the voter registration is more significant than simply a voter shift. So, there's some structural things that I think we can be hopeful about, but at the end of the day or the week or the month or however long it takes us to, figure out who won this thing, I just think it's still going to be extremely tight. And this is a turnout election. This is about who can get the key voters coming out on their side that they have to have for a win. So
is any voter undecided? I mean, I can't imagine that there are undecideds. I mean, what I'm hearing is that there are people that maybe have made up their mind but aren't going to vote. I don't think there's many on the Trump side. There may be some on the Harris side. Your thoughts on what percentage of the population, as we speak on Election Day, are undecided and are like making up their mind as they walk in the booth today?
I think it's extremely small. In fact, there's a clue, in my opinion, about this. I think both sides recognize that it's so small that they have two choices. So Trump has two choices in his final argument, right? He can either try to persuade the minuscule number of people who, after a year plus and billions of dollars being spent, still don't know which way they're going, or he can send out a message that is to more of the base of the party that agrees more with him, but needs to come out to the polls. And I think you're seeing this in a lot of his final campaign stops, where his message is aimed much more at the folks that are converted but still need to go to church, right?
Yeah.
On her side, it's the same thing. If you look at the Harris final argument, it's really more to the base of her party. And so there again, she knows that she needs more black men to come out and vote for her. She needs greater numbers of Hispanics. She wants to goose up the young, white, college-educated women. And she has to have those voters. So she's speaking their language. Neither candidate is actually talking to an undecided voter.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. Let's talk about Virginia. You live in Virginia, right? I think.
Yes, I do.
In the suburbs of Washington, D.C. You're, you're kind of a, what's the right word? A missionary among the savages.
In a strange land, right?
You're a stranger in a strange land. I think Virginia is likely to turn on the turnout in the southern part of the state, southwestern in particular, and whether or not all of the Beltway bandits and bureaucrats, if they turn out at the same level. What do you think the odds are when we close the polls tonight at, I think, 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Virginia? How's that going to turn out? Does Trump have a chance?
You know, yeah, my so
I hear some hedging come on here.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's put it this way. If Trump is able to take Virginia, and that's known fairly early, and this is one thing we should look at, right? Because unlike Pennsylvania, with a lot of the stuff going on, Virginia actually has a pretty good structure around knowing who's going to win this thing.
Yeah.
At least within the first 24 hours, let's say, and probably sooner than that. So let's put it this way. For all of your listeners tonight, take a good look at Virginia, because if Trump wins Virginia, it's over. Then it's over. But even if he loses by a minuscule amount,
it's an indication.
That is a clue that all of these other places are, because we vote by state.
Exactly.
But as one of my friends said, we're increasingly a national political.
Brian Quigley.
And right?
Thanks so much for joining us today. Really, go and vote if you haven't already. I know you have.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us, Brian. All right.
It.
Up next, we're going to hear it's election game day, and we're going to Arizona now. Rachel Alexander on the ground in Arizona. Back after this.
My fellow Americans, I have to tell you about my good friends at D.T. McCall & Sons. They have furniture and appliances and a lot more. They've been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years, and they're not going to rip you off. No hidden charges, no delivery charges, no charges for all of the crazy things. These are sick people at the lumber yards. These are very sick people. They charge you for cords and hoses and haul off. They charge you for all of these things. They call them hidden charges. It's the type of surprise that you don't want to see. It's like an October surprise, but it's worse. D.T. McCall & Sons, they're not going to do that. They're great people. They're going to give you a great deal with locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin. D.T. McCall & Sons will give you the deal of your life. Check them out today or go to dtmccalls.com.
Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to Election Game Day, Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Just like the guys that cover college football, we're going game day all around the country. We were in Virginia in our previous segment. We go now to Arizona, where we welcome the very best election integrity attorney in the entire country and the best election integrity reporter, also our reporter for the Arizona Sun-Times, Rachel Alexander. Welcome, Rachel.
Hey, Michael. How's it going?
Well, how's it going out there in Arizona? So much to unpack. What has happened in Arizona electorally? Let's talk just at the top level first in the presidential race, Trump v. Harris. What's been going on out there in the past week? Lots of rallies. Trump and Tucker were there. The Attorney General got in the fray. Tell us what's been going on there.
So everything just continues to crescendo for Trump here. The momentum is incredible. Democrats appear to have given up on Arizona when you're looking at the battleground states at this point. Arizona seems to be the most solid of all the battleground states for Trump. The polls have him up the highest here. I haven't seen any of the ones that I've been really looking at that have him less than 6 or 7 points ahead of Harris. So in terms of that race, I think we're in outstanding condition, especially considering the Democrats are way behind on returning ballots this year as opposed to 2020. Their game is no good here. I think it was a couple 100,000 or at least 100,000 early ballots behind or in early in-person voting. So I don't see how they can catch up at this point. We think they might barrage us with a bunch of last-minute ballots and try to overwhelm the legal system with, everybody trying to challenge them. But it just shows their game isn't as good as it was in 2020.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about their game not being as good as it was in 2020. Now, a couple things here to talk about. Maricopa County. Now, for our listeners around the country, they don't understand just how much of Arizona voting depends upon Maricopa County. You've got 12 counties out there, and Maricopa County, which is Phoenix, basically, and the surrounding areas, it's about, 60% of the population of the state? Do I have that right?
It is. So it decides the races, but it's always been red. It's never, been this so-called purple or blue county. So that's why Arizona's been red for so many years.
Now, to follow up on that, the election official there who supervises Maricopa County elections, they call him the recorder, and that's the
Maricopa County recorder,
right?
Correct.
And that fellow, the incumbent, is a so-called Republican, Stephen Richer, who was defeated in his efforts to be reelected. So he's a lame duck recorder. But it still strikes me that he's trying to create as much damage as he can on the way out. That's me talking, not you. And I keep seeing things like But Maricopa County is going to take us a couple of weeks to get all our ballots in. Just catch us up on all that.
So I believe you're absolutely correct. I think he does everything he can to sabotage elections. He always says, we have the most safe, secure elections and transparent, and I'm trying to do everything I can, to make sure. That's not true. I can give you a long list of things that election integrity activists have recommended, and he hasn't done any of them. And when he says it's going to take 10 to 13 days to count the ballots after the election, he always blames state law, but there's other things that he could do to speed things up. For one, he could have voters tabulate their own ballots on election day. And that's one thing that he could be allowed to do, but he just claims, no, we can't do that. It's just too hard. It's too much work. So he makes up all these excuses and he lies. And we have this wonderful activist here, Marissa Hamilton, who of Easy AZ, who all she does is half the day is like tweet about how inaccurate he is and all the lies he says. And that's why he was so easily defeated. I mean, there was a third party, not third party, but I mean, a third candidate in that GOP primary who could have easily split the vote with him, with this Heap who won. Allowing Richard to stay on. But Richard was so bad and he is so hated here that those two didn't even split the vote. Heap won in a landslide.
Now, what's interesting about this, he's still in power and he's still saying it could take, 10, 12 days to get all the results in? Explain this to me. Back in 1960, right, when everything was manual, when John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon were running for president, every state got all their results in like by 1 o'clock that night, and they called the election for Kennedy. But why now, all these 64 years later, with all the technology we have, why does it take longer to get all these results in?
And it's revisionist history. There's an article of mine that you just published on the Tennessee Star, I believe, this morning, about how the Progressive Knight Foundation, all these election experts on the left, came out and said during that seminar, well, it's always taken this long to tally the results. They're trying to say that wasn't even true now. So, I believe that, wink, wink, nod, nod. They know that when you drag these elections out, it allows these corrupt cheaters to do things. And they don't even have to be in on it. They just have to know what's happening. Look at that Maricopa County temporary elections employee, a progressive activist who was caught stealing a key fob. Yep, and that would have reprogrammed all 140 voting machine tabulators on election day. That's Bill Gates' words, not even mine.
So this evening, when we start getting results in, remember in 2020, by 11 o'clock at night, Fox News had called Arizona for Joe Biden. And according to the final results tabulated weeks later, it was an 11,000 vote margin for Joe Biden, asterisk. Most of us don't really believe that was true. But here's the thing. If we only have 11 of the 12 counties, 40% of the votes in by this evening, how are people going to understand or know where to rack up the 11 electoral college votes for Arizona?
You mean we won't even be able to call the presidential race nationwide as a result of the slow
Possibly.
walking?
I mean, I'm guessing. I just want some guidance on that. Because to me, I look at all this and I say, look, Trump's going to win Arizona, right? But when will that be officially? I mean, if it's 10 days, 10 days?
But the Democrats don't want us calling it that early. They want to keep dragging it out and dragging it out so they can figure a way to change the results. So I don't think there's any way we're going to be able to call Arizona that early because it's part of a deliberate strategy.
Yeah. And yet, I mean, this was the same issue that they had last summer. I mean, the final results from Arizona weren't reported on election night. There were, I'm trying to recall, it was like 3 or 4 days later, wasn't it? That from the official reporting entities. And yet,
right. And you know what, Michael? I would not put it past a Fox News or other station to do exactly what they did last time and call Arizona early for Kamala anyway, because that's their modus operandi. They demoralize people. They, get the courts feeling more confident about ruling in their favor when they've already done that. So I would not be surprised if MSNBC, Fox News is probably kind of scared at this point. That guy ended up getting fired, but one of these outlets is going to boldly come out and call Arizona for Kamala. You heard it.
Well,
don't
you think in the psyops of the left, that's what's going to happen? MSNBC, ABC, CBS, they're going to call these states as part of a psyops.
Yes.
Early for Kamala, even though she probably is not going to win them. That'd be my guess. And so then we're in this contorted long-term effort to kind of get the results. What's the likelihood that anyone else looking at this delayed data from Arizona would, based upon the 11 reporting counties, which should be in tomorrow night, late tonight, right? Are there any other media outlets that you think will make a call on tonight for Arizona? If the results come in as we think they will.
I would say it's going to be one of these super far left progressive ones that's edgy. It's like the Daily Beast type, or the Vox type, or the MSNBC is like the most obvious. But I can see CNN as well. You've got some crazy people there too.
Anybody on our side, do you think, would step up
and call it for Kamala?
No, call it for Trump. Arizona, because Arizona is going to vote for Trump, I think.
Well, right. So, I expect something like, OANN, they would be a likely one to, call it for Trump early on. Maybe Newsmax. I don't see Fox News doing anything. Those guys are too nervous after.
Well, that's a very good point. And so there would be a dueling calls, which will feed into the whole election fight. My guess, though, is that even despite that, I think we'll see the early results, and you'll be available this evening for the John Fredericks Radio Network, I think, to just give us the inside scoop on it. When we come back, can you stick around, because we've been talking about the mechanics here and Trump doing very well, but there is another race out there that I want to talk about with you, and there have been some recent developments with that race. Of course, I'm talking about Kari Lake, who is the GOP nominee for the United States Senate, who's running against Ruben Gallego, the Democrat nominee. And there's been movement of late. And when you come back after this break here, Rachel, let's focus on the Kari Lake, Ruben Gallego Senate race. This is the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Rachel Alexander with the Arizona Sun-Times is with us. Back after this.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back. And we are joined on our Zoom newsmaker line by the great reporter, our great reporter with the Arizona Sun-Times, Rachel Alexander. Okay, we're talking about the Senate race between today in Arizona between Kari Lake, the Republican nominee, and Ruben Gallego, the Democrat nominee. Rachel, I'm looking at the latest polls here at Real Clear Politics. Atlas Intel, a poll completed on the 31st, 3% margin of error, shows Kari Lake leading by 1%, 49-48. But the insider advantage with a poll that was completed on November 2nd, Saturday, 3% margin of error, shows Ruben Gallego leading by 2 points, 49-47. Can you clear all this up for us, Rachel Alexander?
So I've been writing and researching these polls on the Kari Lake race really closely the last few weeks. And the one thing that really struck out to me is most of these polls that are showing Gallego ahead, they're using faulty methodology. They're oversampling Democrats. You know, here in Arizona, we have an almost 6% voter registration edge for Republicans. So if you're not polling and reflecting that, you're giving an advantage to the Democrats. They also oversample college-educated voters who tend to also be more Democrat. They might oversample women. And you know, there's a few other things like only, you know, surveying registered voters instead of likely voters. You know, I always love Rasmussen reports because they not only just survey likely voters, but they survey what they call likely voters, you know, people who vote in all the last 4 elections. And so, you know, it's pretty obvious they're going to vote again. So I don't give much credence to those polls that are showing Kari's behind. This new poll from Atlas Intel that you cited, that pollster is ranked fairly highly by the left-leaning 538 polling aggregator site. And they also lean to the left. So, you know, that most accurate poll stating that Kari's ahead, combined with Data Orbital, which is even ranked even higher, they're ranked 8th out of hundreds of pollsters for being the most accurate. Data Orbital has Kari up a point. So I believe that she really is ahead. And, you know, while I can admit this now, you know, while a couple weeks ago, a month ago, I didn't think she'd be able to pull it off. I think she actually is going to pull it off as long as there's not massive voter fraud.
Yeah, a very good point. And what's interesting when I look at it, Rachel, here's what strikes me about that race. So if you look at the Trump-Harris race, Trump has very clear policy positions. Harris, you have no idea what she really claims to stand for, even though I think there's a good understanding that she stands for left-wing programs. Gallego has a track record of being far left, and yet on the campaign trail, you just can't get much of anything out of him. Your thoughts on that?
He's one of those people who's been promoted beyond his abilities. He's just not a good speaker. He's not charismatic. He's not good at explaining his flip-flopping. You know, here in Arizona, the number one issues are border security and the economy. And on border security, he's got a flip-flopping record. You know, he voted that illegal immigrants should be able to vote. And then the next time that came up again, he voted the opposite way. So no, he's an absolutely rotten candidate. His voting record is super far left. He votes with Biden all the time. And, you know, I know we've discussed this before on your show. You know, I have a friend of mine who goes around the state interviewing people on whether they're going to vote for Trump or Kari or whatever. And he said the people who are voting for Gallego don't know a thing about him. They're only voting for him based on his Hispanic last name because, you know, Phoenix is now majority Hispanic, not white.
If Ruben Gallego's last name was Smith, how far would he be behind Kari Lake?
Easily, all the major polls will be showing him, you know, 6 to 8 points behind.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because I look at the guy, and he's got the pedigree. He went to Harvard, His father's got a bad background. Is his father was in prison at the time for some
Right.
nefarious activity?
I think it was smuggling hard drugs over the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, he's horrible. And I'm always suspicious. You went to Harvard too, so and my older brother went to Harvard. I'm
You got to be
always
suspicious of those guys.
Well, I just feel like so many people get in not based on their actual brains, but on their pedigree. Like,
Would you like to know what my pedigree was? Kids from upstate.
A white guy from a poor area.
No. A kid from upstate New York who could run the football. That was my pedigree. Way back when.
Hey, that's valid. That's valid.
So yeah, he's the most. How can I describe him? There's nothing substantive about the guy. There's nothing compelling about the guy. He's weak in every regard. Plus, he's got that messy personal story with his ex-wife who he left when she was 9 months pregnant. That's a bizarre story as well.
He's just an empty suit is what he is. He's been propped up because of his ethnicity. We all know it. And meanwhile, Carrie is not only beautiful and charismatic, but she's absolutely brilliant. I mean, she just ran circles around him at that debate.
Mm-hmm.
It was so painful. It was so embarrassing. And, the fact that people are voting for him based on his name is absolutely disgusting and repulsive. And Martin Luther King Jr., who said someday, we'll treat people not by the color of their skin. I mean, he would be disgusted by this and what's happened to the Democrat Party.
But tell us how you really feel, Rachel. Well, look.
Hey, I chaired the successful initiative to ban affirmative action here in Arizona in 2010, so I feel very strongly about this.
30 seconds. Where are you going to be tonight?
So I am headed for the Carrie Lake election party. She should be given a speech about 8 p.m. when the first results come out.
Rachel Alexander, thanks for that great report. Election Day, Arizona. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, up next, we'll be back after this. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.